Hello and welcome back to Under Review. Today we have on a special guest, SNY Reporter for UConn Women's Basketball, Maria Marino. Thank you so much for coming on today, Maria.
Thank you very much for having me.
And as always, I'm Breemon.
And I'm Grant Mangle. Let's get into it.
Today we are going to talk about that Tennessee UConn game, ended 75-56. We know this is a storied rivalry and the Huskies pulled away with a win. I guess just my first question is, after coming off what was that rocky game against Creighton, everyone wondered what the result of this game was going to be, yet we definitely saw a different energy on the court yesterday. What do you think sparked the Huskies to perform as well as they did?
Well, there's a couple things. I think everyone gets up for the UConn-Tennessee matchup for sure. But also I think it's just an example of taking adversity and just responding to it in the right way. And they just keep getting hit, this Huskies team. They keep getting hit with injury after issue. And I think they were probably just like, let's respond to this in the best way we can. And they kind of rallied. They rallied around the situation. I think it was a little bit of a surprise not having Caroline Ducharme, and they didn't skip a beat. They rallied.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. For me personally, I look at, even though she downplayed it, Evina Westbrook playing against her old team, I know that has to be bulletin board material for her. I'm sure all week in practice, they were focused and ready to go for this one. But Azzi Fudd was really the star of the game. She stole the show and really had her second coming out party. We saw the flashes down in the Bahamas against South Florida when she had 18 points on 6 threes, had her first career start and won up to that with 7 threes. What do you think Azzi's presence brings to this team?
It just brings a much needed shooting presence. After Paige's injury, the shooting really went downhill a little bit. And part of it is just because the offense wasn't running as smoothly. And we know that Kristen Williams at times can light it up from 3, but everyone else has been pretty inconsistent from the 3-point line. Azzi brings that sure thing. And that's exactly what she did against Tennessee, going 7 of 9 from 3. That's just crazy impressive. But you can just tell she really has that shooter's mentality, that confidence. Every time I get the ball, if I'm mildly open, I'm gonna sling it, and I'm gonna be confident and trust in my shot. And that's something that she's told me as well this season. So we've seen a few others start to come into their own. Nika Mule can shoot the 3, but again has been inconsistent at times. But just having Azzi there and knowing that she has the confidence to knock those down, I think that was just the number one thing that she brought.
So many players like Azzi performed at their highest potential yesterday. So going off of that, any chance that you had a favorite play? I know mine definitely was that Nika Mule 3-pointer, and then she got the steal, came back on the fast break and got the layup. She definitely had a lot of energy in that game, but just want to know if you had a personal favorite.
Well, that Nika sequence was definitely a good one. And she's a fan favorite, and she has a unique role on this team as somebody that brings energy and intensity kind of no matter what's going on. So I really appreciate what she brings, and I'm just excited to see if she can be that consistent presence where every game she does just that. Maybe knocks in 1 or 2 threes, gets a steal, gets a transition layup, and brings that defensive intensity. That's exactly what the team needs. But looking around, I definitely think we already talked about Azzi, but that first possession of the game when she just drilled a wide open 3, it was almost like foreshadowing what would happen, knowing that she was going to be on point with her shot and she was going to have a signature performance. And then Evina Westbrook as well. And, I think there's more to it than just the history with her having played at Tennessee. She has had sort of an up and down season, and she's had some games where, she's brought a lot to the table, and other games where, others have been kind of taking that spotlight. And for me, to see her come in off the bench and just make it an impact was really, really exciting, because I think Avina has the clutch gene. We've seen it before. We saw it a couple times last season, including against the Tennessee game and some of the other big wins where even against DePaul, she had 1 3 in the whole game. It was like one of the biggest shots of the game. And I think that's where she can kind of make her mark on this team, even when Paige comes back. If she can be that like calming veteran presence that can be poised and make clutch shots, that is going to go a long way for the Huskies.
You spoke about both Nika and Azzi, and they were 2 of the key contributors in that big second half run. It seemed that just about everything that could go right went right finally for the Huskies, and it seems like the pieces are finally starting to come together without Paige on the court. What do you feel like we did best, and do you feel like they're starting to turn a corner?
I do. I think they're starting to turn a corner confidence-wise. That was a big thing after Paige went down, because she was just the engine on both ends, and so many things ran through her that when you take out that piece, you have to establish not only the confidence, but just the chemistry, what the roles are going to be for everybody. And I think they've done that now. And because of everything they've been through, we didn't even mention they went without Dorka, and then before that they were out without Kristen for COVID. And so it's just like the fact that they've made it through all of that stuff, and they had some big comeback wins, especially on the road with Creighton and DePaul. And now this was really a statement win against another top 10 opponent. They got Azzi back. Things are starting to click now. And, I do wonder, when Paige does return, how they sort of seamlessly integrate her back in. And I do think, it would make sense that it might take a little bit of time. So I would sort of caution Huskies fans, not that I don't think she's going to be great. I just think, it's a change. And so they're going to have to, like I said, just now that all of these other players have sort of come along, it's like, okay, we got to get the fit and the chemistry back. But the good thing is that Paige is such a good facilitator, and she has such great court vision, and she makes her teammates better. So I don't see how it could hurt.
I think just going off of that, you said it yourself, it was a statement win. It definitely gave them confidence, as it's been such a long journey adjusting without Paige and so many other people. But at the same time, that was Tennessee, who was ranked 7th, UConn ranked 10th. Tennessee used to be as high as 4, and now they've dropped to 13th. So it's kind of hard to tell who Tennessee is. So what can we take away from that game?
You take away that this is a season with a lot of parity, and anyone can beat anyone at any time. And a win is a win, number one. And Tennessee is a really good team. So, we don't want to take anything away negatively from the win. I just think that everything is going to boil down to March, as it does every year. And February is kind of when you really, really learn who everybody is. It's hard to know who UConn even is. Like you talked about Tennessee. What do we know about them? What do we know about UConn? We haven't seen everybody together really at all. We haven't seen them at full strength since the very beginning of the season. And as I said, so many people have developed since then, and so much has happened. So I would just say, I wouldn't panic, and I wouldn't be too confident either. I would just try to stay level, both as a team and as fans, because, we're going to really find out in the coming weeks, I think, who everybody is.
You make a great point in how we haven't really seen everyone together. And now the depth of this team is really starting to show. Caroline Ducharme, she came into a prominent role early on. Nika Mule and Azzi Fudd back from injury. Aaliyah Edwards even started to look like her freshman year self a little bit yesterday. When this team was fully loaded, how is Coach Auriemma going to keep everyone happy with minutes, and who's going to be getting the shots? And eventually down the road in March, what is the starting 5 going to look like?
Oh, that's hard to say. I think that was a question That was a question that people were asking coming into the season, like looking at the depth of the team, feeling like they were probably deeper than they've been in a few years, and just being like, how are all these minutes gonna be distributed? And then it was like, well, we don't even have the luxury of thinking about that because we're shorthanded. Now we're slowly starting to get people back. But I would think that, you know, as I said, Paige might need some time. So, you know, while she might go back into a starting role right away, she's not going to play as many minutes as she used to. She might start on more of a minutes restriction, so ease her back into it. I think, you know, Nika has done a good job, I think, of solidifying the value she brings to the starting lineup, because I think before she was in the starting lineup, and this is something that happened last year too, there would be a little bit more of a sluggish start to games, and it doesn't seem to happen as much when Nika's in the lineup. So there's certainly value there. I can't imagine a starting lineup without Kristen and Olivia in it, because they're the seniors, they have the most experience. So it really comes down to, I think, Nika and Caroline, because Caroline is really the one that, well, both Nika and Caroline weren't really in the starting lineup at the beginning of the season. But like I said, we saw that, you know, once Nika became healthy, we see what she brings. And, you know, Caroline is Caroline. Like, you can't say enough about what Caroline has done. I mean, she has essentially, I don't want to say carried the team, but she's been the most consistent scoring threat throughout all of these injuries. So, and then now you have Azzi, who, you know, she had her first career start and ends up with 25 points. So, man, I guess what I'm saying is I really don't have the answer to that. And that's going to be a Hall of Fame coach's decision, you know, and if anyone can figure it out and figure out the puzzle, it's going to be Gino and Chris Daly and the rest of the coaching staff. But yeah, I just, like, if Paige is 100%, and you would think she's not going to play unless she's 100%, you know, even with some minutes restrictions, I just have a hard time thinking she's not going to start. And I have a hard time thinking Kristen and Olivia aren't going to start. So that somewhat answers it, but there's definitely still some questions of how the minutes are going to go around, but it's a good problem to have for sure.
I think the debate is definitely between Ducharme and Mule, because they bring such great things, but such different things. Ducharme brings so many scoring points, and she's able to drive, shoot from three, but then Mule just brings this energy that just starts up the rest of the team. So it's going to be kind of hard to decide, definitely there.
Right. And you know, you might decide to go small. You might decide to go small and go more like 4 guards, if you will, because Caroline is a bigger guard. And like you said, she can even post up. I mean, she can drive and get to the basket. And Gino said she's really the best at finishing at the rim. So that's an option to consider as well. And remember, pretty sure Dorka wasn't in the starting lineup at the beginning of the season either. That was something that developed as well, you know, once Paige went down. So, you know, it might depend on who's doing what at the time, and it might be an ever-changing thing depending on matchup as well.
We've tested, I feel like, quite literally every lineup with how many injuries there's been, but the only thing that I think is in Ducharme's favor is the fact that she is a 6'2" guard. So she's in for rebounds, she's in for layups, which might be harder for Mule, but at the end of the day, I definitely think it's going to be tough. And I think that kind of just moves into the question of, we've had this rocky road of injuries, COVID. We don't even know how we're going to be in March, even though Coach Auriemma said we could be good in March yesterday. But is the ceiling for this team still a championship this year?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't, you know, it might be in question just because of everything that's happened. And a lot does ride on what Paige looks like when she comes back, and again, sort of reintegrating her and seeing how the team clicks. But ultimately, yes, because a lot of these players have grown during this time, I still consider them a contender, and that's not to say, you know, they're my pick at this moment to win it all, but I just know that, like I said, anything can happen, and we have to see, we won't be able to see, like anytime we've had a non-conference game, well, we saw UConn, South Carolina at the beginning of the season, and South Carolina has been sort of the clear-cut favorite, I would say, like most of the season. So it's hard to say, you know, that they're far and away better than UConn when UConn's at full strength. They certainly beat UConn at full strength at the time, but so much has changed. Like that matchup is, I'm giving the edge to South Carolina, don't get me wrong, but it's still not a clear like indicator of anything. It's not really an example of like what these two teams are now. And then, you know, the non-conference matchups since then, they were just not full strength UConn. So it's hard to say. I just know my first year covering UConn was not last season, but the season before that, covering the women's side. And that was 2020. So that was the year that the NCAA tournament didn't happen. And that whole season, UConn lost to like the three best teams, basically, South Carolina, Oregon, and one other one. I have to think. But I remember people thinking like, are they not as good this year? This, that, the other thing. And then like they were playing their best basketball at the end of the season, which is what you want. I was at the American Conference tournament, which they won, and I could just see like they were clicking and they had all the momentum going in, and I was so excited for that tournament. It was just like such a bummer that it didn't happen, but you know, they've managed to make 13 in a row, and I'm not gonna I can't bet against them not making it, you know what I mean, like to the Final Four. So and now they have so much more experience. That's really what it comes down to, because you know, playing in the Final Four last year, and then the younger players really getting more experience throughout this season it's all positive. And I just think the Division I game, like we've seen a lot of upsets this year, and we've seen a lot of up and down, and so I wouldn't count them out.
We've talked about when to press the panic button a lot on our show throughout the year, trying to talk to people back off the ledge a little bit. And our answer has always been wait until Paige is back. These players, like you said, they're growing, they're figuring out their own games by themselves instead of just relying on her. So I think I speak for both of us when I say we're absolutely still a championship contender. You play those games in November and December to get yourself ready for March. And like you said, you want to be playing your best basketball at this time of year.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. And like I said, February is a big deal. You know, February is really where things kind of come together. And I anticipate, you know, again, UConn's not going to rush Paige Bueckers back. They're going to make sure she's healthy and ready to go and have her best interests at heart and in mind. But if we are expecting her back, maybe in the next week or two, there is a little bit of time, and it might not, you know, like I said, it might not be pretty, as it hasn't always been this season. It might not be pretty, but it's all a learning process. And there are going to be some things that need to be figured out. But if that happens, then again, you have a situation where you have a boatload of talent, you have an incredible coaching staff, and you have a lot of advantages in that regard.
Just think what UConn has this year is a vengeance. After losing last year, they really wanted to come back and win it this year. And then all the adversity they faced this season, they probably would have never predicted. And although UConn is such a storied team, having 11 national championships, not a single player on our court has a national championship to their name. So I really think those seniors are gonna want to pull away with a championship to finish off their career.
Absolutely. You know, I think that was the main motivation coming in. I remember talking to Kristen Williams and just, you know, talking about the idea of redemption and just like her feeling like she's a senior and wanting to take responsibility. She doesn't want that to happen again, that the Final Four exit in the semifinals they had last year, And, I think Paige is somebody that has a lot of that to play for as well, because not only is she gonna be itching to get back and play, but she was, the player of the year last year. And she has a reputation, and as they all do, but I could see her being really, really hungry to get back and show what she can do. And I know she's not the only one.
Yeah, last night you see Caitlin Clark go out there, 46 points, 10 assists. I'm sure Paige wants to get out there and say, hey, remember me, remember what I can do, and lead this team.
Yeah, even though they're buddies, and there's been a lot of really impressive players that have emerged, and I'm really looking forward to, and this is not going to be an easy road here in the conference. When UConn plays DePaul again at home, I think that's going to be a really, really good game. Anissa Morrow is the real deal. Like, she is, I think, a freshman of the year candidate, potentially a future player of the year. I mean, I think she's in the conversation this year. We already saw some other, some really good efforts here in the conference. And so it's going to be a really exciting run down the stretch here. Looking forward to it.
It's great to see how competitive the conference gets now, because I knew that before, like, sometimes UConn would have to set other goals in conference play, but now that it's like really competitive, it does give them a chance to prepare for the tournament.
Yeah, they didn't lose a single game in the Americans. So to at least have, and they only played 4 single-digit games. So to actually get more of those, and you're right, in February, in late January, it really gives them a lot better of a barometer of where they are.
Yeah, and they have a lot to play for in that regard too. They really, pride themselves in that record and not losing conference games. So it's all important, and we're stressing this going into the Creighton game, and you saw it. They really they had to fight and battle back. But Gino had said something along the lines of, you see it. It really doesn't matter who you play. Like, everybody is coming and they're giving their best game against you. So it's up to them to make the other team play poorly, because they're those other teams. They get up and they play their best against UConn. So. It has been a season of craziness, and I think it'll make them better in the end. And it's been hard, but I think hopefully it'll pay off.
It's definitely made the season a lot more interesting, and it makes February a lot more interesting too. We have Villanova Wednesday and DePaul Friday. Just a good week of Big East basketball, but I think that's all we have on Tennessee. But thank you for coming on, Maria. Great insight.
Thank you.
And that's all from us. I'm Brimon.
And I'm Grant Mangle. Thanks for watching.